let's take a moment to just show some appreciation for all the people who put on this event. It's been a great day of conversations. I know that I've learned a lot. I know that there's so many people I want to talk to that I haven't even got a chance yet. So if we could, just let's hear a round of applause for the organizers. And let me go ahead and have the other panelists go ahead and come up on stage while I go through a few more jokes. So the next joke is this. You're all so patient that you would make good EV drivers. Because we're here talking about uptimes, and we all know like the stuff just doesn't work sometimes. And sometimes it's slow, and sometimes you gotta wait behind like how many people to get to a charger. So I bet the population in the room is more EV driving than most. And then because it's the end of the day, we're gonna liven it up with this is gonna be the most fun panel, and I can say that because we have 3 panelists that are in some way involved in show business or have been involved in show business. So we're entertainers. On stage right now, you have a former or current TV producer, a former or current movie screenwriter, and a former or current punk rock singer. Now you get to spend the panel trying to figure out who's who. And if you guess correctly, you get a free Cybertruck test drive.
They're all Googling.
And if you guess wrong, you get 2 test drives.
Well, thank you, panelists, for joining me on stage today to talk about the profitability of uptime. The profitability of uptime, we're going to go through and give you each a chance to talk about what it means to you. And that's also your chance to give an introduction, to tell us who you are. We want to make sure that we bring not only the topic, but you and your company to life. And I'll start off with a quick anecdote and what it means to me. I heard somebody ask about like things you can do to improve the economics of an EV charger model, like you do in a spreadsheet. And I'll just say, like, I've built hundreds of them, and I keep on building them because I keep trying to make them profitable. It's that difficult. And there's one thing in that profitability model that's the most important thing. And that thing is like, we can figure out the PPAs and we can talk about all that, but at the end of the day, it's demand. And if you want to crush demand, have stuff that doesn't work. No joke, my last house, I had a gas station right next to the community. It was on my way when I drive in. And the first time I tried to use it, the pump didn't work. I never went back. It was next to my house. Like, it couldn't be more convenient. But there was another station down the road that I passed. And so, of course, I always went there. And so it crushes demand. And there's so many other implications that these folks will talk about. So enough about me. Let's go ahead and talk about our panelists. So if you would, go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about what the profitability of uptime means to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name is Amber. I am from ABB. ABB is a global technology company. We enable our customers to reach their sustainability goals through electrification and automation. We make everything from the robots that manufacture electric vehicles to the tie wraps that would be used in them. And we also have a subsidiary that manufactures EV chargers. For us as a global technology provider, reliability, we obviously know that we have a big role in that, in delivering that. And of course, that can come from innovation. So for example, if we're talking about chargers, that can be, how many points do we make accessible from a diagnostic perspective within our equipment? Of course, there's standard mandated access to that information, but some charger companies also go even beyond what the standard requires and enables visibility to even more finite elements. This obviously makes reliability improve because you can diagnose more detailed information from the charger. But beyond innovation, there's also simplification, reducing the number of potential failure points in our equipment. If you look at chargers from 10 years ago versus chargers today, you'll see they have a lot less stuff in the box. So that's obviously feeding into that reliability equation. And I would say probably most importantly for us is also partnerships. So we work with the vehicle manufacturers during their development cycles to ensure interoperability with our chargers, but also software companies like AmpUp to ensure there's a seamless integration between hardware and software so there's no technological surprises when the equipment and the solution shows up on the site. So yeah, that's from my perspective where I think where we have to bring the value for enabling uptime.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to DiNucci. And DiNucci, if you would, tell us what it means to you, but also I want you to work into your response. Help us understand the difference between, like, you told me that's really significant, the difference between 98% uptime and 100% uptime. So use that to kind of bring it to life.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. It's really great to be on the panel. They kind of gave me these narrow-armed chair here. They didn't, bad for a big guy. They should have said I needed to butter myself before I came up under this, sit down in this chair. But I'm Mike DiNucci. I'm Chief Revenue Officer of AmpUp. We are a software company that works with more than a dozen hardware platforms, including ABB and many other level 2, level 3 charging stations. We're also featured in the CBRE Innovation Center that Mike will talk about. This mic isn't so hot. This mic's hot, and this mic's hot. But what I'd like to say is just real quickly, to give you a little bit more of my introduction. I was employee number 9 at ChargePoint in 2008. I put the very first charging station, ChargePoint number 1, into the city of San Jose in December of 2008. Gavin Newsom was mayor of San Francisco at that time, was really mad that he got scooped. So January of 2009, he put in the next station. Those weren't paid stations, they were free pilots. And the first paid station was February of 2009 with Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, followed very shortly by Netflix. And so I stayed there 12 years as Senior VP of Sales. Loved that time there, helping to build a really big brand. I still have a lot of warm and sentimental feelings for the company, not so much about the stock price, but that's the way things go. AmpUp is really a terrific sort of alternative to a closed end-to-end system. We're open. We'll work with whatever hardware you want to work with, and we have great load management. We've got a lot of terrific features that customers kind of demand in this intelligent, informed marketplace that we see ourselves in. So nearing my 16th year of selling EV charging, one of the things that I thought about a lot is we used to go from range anxiety to there's not enough charging stations to what about DC or fleets? When's that pivot happening? And now it's mostly about there's a ton of charging stations that have been littered across the landscape, and a lot of them don't work. That's a major, major problem, and it's one that as an industry we need to tackle together. So one last sort of thought that I'll give you, and Michael kind of teed me up for this. Think about this. When companies talk about 90% uptime or 98% uptime, that sounds great because it starts with a 9. 90% uptime, that means 10% of the year your station's down, that's 36 and a half days. Or 2%, 98, that's 1% of a year is 3.65 days. So if you're 98% uptime, you're telling us that you're accepting more than a week of downtime every year. I don't think that that's acceptable. It hurts profitability. And to Michael's anecdote about the gas station, if you find a bad experience or you have a bad experience where something isn't working or it's down, chances are you're going to go find some other place to give your business to. So to me, reliability equals profitability. Availability is your best ability in this space.
Thank you, Mike. Going to another Mike, Mike Fogerty. Tell us a little bit about you, about what you do at CBRE, and you also have a great perspective on what uptime means to businesses, employees, families. So bring to life, the human element and what it means to you and how it's part of your mission to make sure that people are able to do what they need to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael, and thank you for being here. Yeah, so Mike Fogerty, I'm with CBRE, and I had previously spent 6 years working with this guy over at ChargePoint. So I have about 8 years in the industry, multiple-time EV driver, both Tesla and non-Tesla. So I've lived all spectrums of being an EV driver. When you talk about the CBRE as a massive company, right? So we service so many different segments. Fleet customers, we heard earlier today about how, hey, if you can't get the goods to the customers, a large retailer like a Walmart can't get goods, that's a profitability hit. We heard about first student today. You can't get kids to school. Not only is that an issue for potentially, the administration of the school, but moms and dads get really angry when they have to avoid their workday to come get their kids or transport them around. On the retail side, if you have Starbucks, which has 18,000 locations in the United States, they look at this as brand recognition. It doesn't matter if the station belongs to CPO X, Y, or Z. If it's down and you have somebody walking in saying, hey, the station is down out there, they're saying, what kind of latte do you want? It's not my forte. And then on the multifamily side, I had a client call earlier today with a large industrial customer that was trying to electrify their fleet. And what they were telling me was 70% of their service techs live in a multifamily environment. And you have to think about that. So for them to electrify their fleet, how are they going to do that knowing that 70% have very complex situations? And then take that a step further where it's not a fleet-related situation. How are you going to get to work just generally if you don't have charging at home? 80 to 90% stats say of charging happen at home or at the workplace. So critical. And then obviously the final component is, the workplace charging that we see for the vast majority of our clients is continuing to accelerate and is critical for them to draw, retain employees, and to provide that. I won't use the word amenity. I believe it's a critical infrastructure service to enable their employees to complete their commutes.
Thank you. And we'll go next to Bill. Bill, you have the good fortune to sit in what must be the scream room of the downtime, right? And so, just to bring things to life for the audience in the room, you're essentially a call center. All these calls are coming in. So, what are you hearing? What is EVA hearing? And are things getting better?
Yeah, we're two things. Thanks. We started as a call center in 2017, offering multi-language support, voice, email, social media, whatever have you. And from there, we built out a tier 2 offering, which is engineering, a big engineering team that handles all hardware, software issues, working with the OEMs, working as sort of that buffer between tier 2 and the tier 3 that I mentioned before. In terms of the calls our tier 1 gets, they run the gamut. Can't start a charging session. For those we do payment supports for, that's usually it's a huge chunk, almost 50% sometimes. Sometimes people pull up, they have an RFID card. They were unaware of it in their excitement to take ownership of an EV. They had no idea how they're going to charge it. Basic commands, start, stop, lock, unlock, of course, general info. Am I doing this right? Yep, goodbye. And that's it. Those obviously happen in new markets too, and certainly in states with younger adoption or sort of slower adoption rates, those calls seem to spike. The am I doing it right, the basic ones. But other than that, it's basic commands and get them on their way. And if we can't, we're typically integrated with our clients' back office. So as I mentioned before, as no driver stranded, we will direct them to a working charger. It's a core principle of our company, even 7 years later.
So if we're going to enable companies to be more profitable, customers to be better served through better uptime, how do we do it? Let's just solve the problem right here on stage. What do you guys say?
I would say one of the biggest things is, from a policy side, the administration has done a great job funding, and the utilities have done a wonderful job funding, municipalities, same thing. But the funding has been geared toward getting infrastructure out there, getting chargers in the ground, and very little or none of it has been related to including operations and maintenance. And it's just creating a really black eye for our industry. And And it's going to get worse because we are going to see consolidation. We are going to see people fall by the wayside. So we have a real problem that, I'll just plead to the policy folks to try to include that as part of their future endeavors.
Great. DiNucci, you have any thoughts on that? What do we need to come up with a better model for supporting uptime, given that it hasn't been properly invested in? Does the industry need a new model? Does it need different partnerships?
I think we do. I mean, I agree with everything that Fogerty just said. He's absolutely dead on the money. But I also think that there's an opportunity for us to tap into areas that we haven't tried before. For example, the gig economy, right? Doing a truck roll for $500 is not cost effective for a lot of companies. Paying 15 or 20% of the cost of the hardware and software for an extended warranty contract is not cost effective for a lot of companies or customers. What Bill's company is doing, I think, is fantastic because they are focusing on that sort of tier 3 of how do you service a station that badly needs care and attention. But I do think that the DoorDashes and Ubers and Lyfts of the world have shown us a pathway where people might be able to use their own vehicle, keep some spares and a toolkit in their trunk, and might be able to, for a very, very cost-effective number, be able to roll to a remote location and fix or repair a station that's out of service. But I also think even going for a little bit further upstream, a lot of this also needs to be handled from a remote diagnostic perspective, right? If you're able to remotely power cycle a station or try and diagnose what is the heartbeat of that station trying to tell us as a technician remotely. I'm not in Ames, Iowa. I'm not sitting in Wichita, Kansas. They're in, Denver or San Jose or, Atlanta. How can they do this in a kind of a remote way? We do a lot of things remotely now, including visit the doctor. So I think charging stations could benefit from a little bit of that.
So the gauntlet has been thrown down here in Austin today. Some Austin tech company, please come up with a new business model and an app. I don't know how you do it, but that helps us solve the uptime of EV chargers by getting the gig economy involved. A lot of what we're talking about is problems that come from previous underinvestment or not including the ongoing O&M in the plan. And so we're putting Band-Aids over those things today, over a growing problem. But there's another thing that has to happen in parallel, and I think this goes to you, Amber, and what ABB is doing. We need to start building things that are future-proofed in terms of the hardware, but in terms of the business model as well. So I'm sure that that's something that you think about a lot, what a future-proofed charging network looks like. So what is that from an ABB perspective?
Yeah, you're right. So if you think about making a big investment in charging infrastructure for a site, of course you want to believe that technology that you've invested in is going to stand the test of time. But we all know that innovation is going on in the space, which is good, but it also may require rework at sites to upgrade for future. For example, megawatt charging is coming. But there are some things that we can do in the preparation of these sites and the selection of all of the equipment that goes behind the chargers to enable those chargers to be upgraded with minimal capital investment on all of those other pieces of equipment. I mean, chargers have a lifetime of 10 years. We often forget about all of the equipment that goes behind the chargers that actually enable the connection to the grid, which has a lifetime of 20 to 30 years. So it's important to get that right because that's going to have to see you through a couple of generations of chargers. And there are ways to specify that equipment in a way that it can work for your 400 kilowatt charger and tomorrow it can also work for your megawatt charger. That technology exists today. And I think also there are things to learn from other industries. Like energy management, for example, is not a challenge that comes to be simply because now we're introducing electric vehicles. Like this is a challenge that is across all industries, manufacturing, commercial buildings. Like this is not something new. And we can lean on those other technologies that exist in all of these other industries and don't need to always reinvent the wheel and make it at the charging level. You can introduce that technology at the equipment behind the charger, so it lasts you the 30 years, and it's built on like tried and true technology where you're not gonna end up with those like technical surprises that I was talking about earlier.
Thank you, Amber. At this point, we actually have some time to go to audience questions. So why don't we go ahead and open it up to all of you now?
Hello, everybody. This question's for the mics. If you guys are why doesn't the industry model Tesla's supercharger uptime of 99.997% uptime? Current customer sentiment of down chargers is not just the industry, black eye. It's more of a customer sentiment. They don't even want to buy an EV because of what they hear by word of mouth. So why does the industry not model pretty much what Tesla's doing with their superior uptime?
No, it's a great point. And Tesla obviously had a massive head start, has done a great job with their network, and to be able to propagate that across the U.S. to establish what I believe is this industry. I think the issue is you have so many different entrants that have come into the market. When you think about trying to service, and at CBRE we've built a system called Nexus. It's a single pane of glass where we're trying to pull in as many different operating systems and chargers. So in Jacksonville, Florida, we have 9 different software platforms running 13 or 14 different hardware variants to understand what the failure mechanisms are, and then to help provide that feedback back to the providers. Some of the things that they can do to help us is to try to standardize on fault codes, on, we don't want source code, I know that was talked about earlier, but as much standardization as we can get, because you remember Tesla was very closed in how they did things. The more that everyone else can share about fault codes and how to repair and commonality in systems, that will significantly improve to try to get us to that number.
I'll also just add one thing. I think over the last 15 years, I've hired more than 25 Tesla alum, and I've grilled them hard. How do they do it? 99.97? That's awesome. I had one person say, be real careful with that number, because the way Tesla calculates their uptime is if there's 10 superchargers in a Target parking lot and 9 of them are down and have been down for months, but one of them is up, the entire site is considered 100% up. Does that sound like 99.9? It doesn't sound like 99.97 to me, but that's how they are counting it. Now, Rebecca DiNucci, no relation, who used to run the Tesla charging team until earlier this year when Elon had a tantrum and fired her and the entire team, that's how they counted it. I don't know if they still count it that way. I'm just saying that, I was at ChargePoint for 12 years, and we talked about a 97, 98% uptime when it was probably closer to, Mike, what do you think? Started with a 6? 9? 7? It was not 97, 98, I guarantee you that. It was probably closer to the 70s or the 80s, but using some creative accounting, the uptime numbers always look a lot better than what is. If you ask a driver in the field, they'll say, it's nonsense, that's a bunch of malarkey. These things are, it's a coin flip, it's down half the time, but they'll still report 97%, 98, or 99.97.
We have time for one more question.
While you're thinking about that, I will say I'm disappointed that State Senator Lee is not still in the room, because I'm 95% or 99.97% sure that in 2011, I got invited to go to an EV readiness conference in Maui. I went and spoke on a panel, and I'm almost certain that he was there. And not only that, everyone talked about, like, how did you get here today? Because a lot of us had to fly there from the mainland. Other people, drove an electric car or an early Leaf or something like that. Senator Lee paddled an outrigger canoe from either Lanai or Molokai, one of the neighboring islands, that morning all the way to Maui, stepped off and came to the panel. And I'm like, this guy looks like he gets carded at R-rated movies. How the hell is he a state senator? And now I see today, he hasn't aged a damn day. So I wish he was still here so I could ask him if that was truly him, but I'm pretty sure. Not too many state senators that look like that.
Well, I think that pretty much brings us here to the end.
What? No more questions?
We are. I'm trying to watch this clock. I think we're good. I think we're wrapping up. So I just wanted to again thank everybody. I wanted to thank our panelists. I love that we got to close out with uptime, because if you don't know, there's like 7 different kinds of uptime. Like, to the user, it's just one, but there's like a payment system and a card system, and there's a telecom connection and a utility connection, and the plug to the car has to work. But all of these people here are trying to make it look seamless and a single, experience for the customer. And we've got EVA stitching them all together, taking all of the headaches and trying to make it responsive for the customer. You know that if it takes a village to put a charger in the ground, it takes an army to keep that charger running. And that's who these people are. So I think that what we've seen today from EV Summit is a lot of great opportunities for partnerships. This is a space that needs partnerships. It needs people collaborating. So I hope you get a chance to know these people, and I hope you get the most out of the reception that we have next. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you so much.